Hey everyone, it's Andrea from Doctors of Running, and today I'm here to give you a 125-mile update on the Nike Vaporfly 3. I can say with total confidence that this is my favorite Vaporfly yet. It's the most comfortable, it performs the best for me. It's definitely my number one, not only marathon racing shoe right now, but just racing shoe. I would use this for anything from a 5K up through a marathon. And I'll get into all the details why in a minute, but let's talk about the specs first. So weight, 6.5 ounces for a men's size 9, 5.6 ounces for a women's size 8. Super lightweight, what we've come to expect from the Vaporfly. Stack height, 38 millimeters in the heel, 30 millimeters in the forefoot, 8 millimeter drop. Definitely feels like a little bit lower than 8 millimeter for me as a midfoot striker. Super comfortable. The heel definitely doesn't get in the way. So why is this shoe the best Vaporfly for me yet? Well, let's talk about the upper first, because the upper in this shoe is definitely the best out of all of the versions of the Vaporfly. If you guys are familiar with previous versions, the upper was a thicker piece. It didn't have any perforations in it. And it didn't really conform to your foot very well. And it laid pretty flat until you put your foot in there. So when you did put your foot in, you'd get some hot spots on the top of your foot. And actually, the marathon I wore version 1 in 2021, I got a little bruise on the top of my foot from the upper rubbing there. The upper in this shoe, it's updated Flyknit. There's absolutely no discomfort. You can also see that the upper kind of stands up on its own, so it keeps the upper a little bit away from your foot. It actually makes this shoe feel a little bit roomier. So definitely from that perspective, more comfortable fitting. The other thing that I really like about this shoe is they shifted the platform of the forefoot medially, so like towards the big toe. And I found that made the shoe more comfortable. It reduced some pressure on my arch that I did feel in versions 1 and 2. Now, while you would typically expect, if you shift the forefoot platform medially, that to slow down or potentially reduce pronation, I didn't really feel that way. I tend to have the opposite problem where I land too far laterally and sometimes have trouble loading my first MTP medially. But this shoe felt really smooth. It didn't feel like I was fighting the shoe at all to get onto my first MTP joint. So for those of you who land further laterally like I do, don't be scared away by that medially shifted platform, because I actually found that it was more comfortable than the previous versions. So I raced a marathon in these. I did grandmas in them in June. I did the New Haven 20K in them a few weeks ago. And I've done a bunch of 16 to 20 mile long runs in them in preparation for those races. And this shoe just performs the best out of all of the versions of the Vaporfly. And I wrote this in the original review, and Matt and I talked about it in a podcast we did on it. But we both actually feel like version 3 is firmer than the previous versions, which a lot of people disagreed with. But I've got to say, after 125 miles, I still feel that way. And the reason I say it feels firmer is versions 1 and 2, when you land, you felt kind of an initial sinking feeling, and then you kind of engaged the rocker in the forefoot and pushed off. This shoe doesn't have a sinking feeling at all. You just land and push off. It's so responsive and smooth. And I really like that feeling in a racing shoe. I don't like really soft shoes. I don't like to feel like I'm sinking into the shoe that I'm trying to run fast in. And this shoe, it's all about forward movement. And it's hands down, like I said, the best Vaporfly I've tried. I'm signed up for the Philly Marathon in November. I'm gonna race it in this shoe. I don't think I'm gonna need to buy a new pair of these either, because they're still in great shape. The midsole feels the same as it did the first day I ran in it. And I'll show you the outsole, which, you can see it's dirty, but there's really no significant wear anywhere. I land here and, everything is still intact there. So I think this shoe is going to last at maybe another 100 miles. I think it'll depend how long the Zoom X midsole feels good. But I think this is going to be my Philly shoe for sure. A couple other things that I've found just in the miles I've put on it. I had mentioned in my original review that this tongue, which is, you can see it's longer, and it kind of it extends actually up past your ankle. And I was concerned that that could create some skin irritation, particularly on longer runs or races. But I haven't noticed that at all. Like, I have zero awareness of the tongue. So even though it looks kind of weird, it doesn't create any irritation for me. The other thing I discovered in New Haven is that this shoe sheds water really well. And it did not rain in New Haven. It was pretty hot. And fortunately, someone was handing out ice cold water bottles halfway through the race, which I promptly dumped the whole bottle over my head, which felt great. But all of a sudden my shoes were waterlogged. And I thought, oh no, this is going to really affect my performance if I'm clogging along with, you know, heavy, wet shoes. But within a mile, all of that water was out of there, and the shoes went back to feeling the way that they did before I dumped the water. So I think if you are racing a rainy race, you can be confident that the Vaporfly 3 isn't going to get bogged down with a bunch of water. So Vaporfly 3, 125 miles, still feeling great. Outsole's in great shape. Midsole feels the same as it did on day one. I'll let you guys know what I end up running in for Philly if I decide to get a new pair, if I stick with these. But I'm really happy with the shoe. Right now it's my #1 racer for everything from 5K up to the marathon. So I'll keep you updated. Thanks for listening. Any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll see you next time.